Billie Eilish's success has been a phenomenon as a genre-blurring artist known for her intimate vocals, minimalist production, and dark, moody themes. Her brand revolves around a unique musical style and a strong connection with Gen Z. Billie's production style and relatable lyrics have made her a standout artist in contemporary pop culture. And in today's video, I'm going to walk you through how I reproduced Happier Than Ever and show you all the tools, techniques, and concepts that you can take away and apply to your own productions. So without further ado, let's jump in. Alright you folks, as always, let's listen through it and then we'll break everything down in detail. What an epic song. All right, so let's start with the drums. So for all the drums, I'm using Logic's stock drum kit, something I normally never do, but these are great sounding drums and I can't believe that I've never really played around with them. I've always had third-party drum software. This is to show you that you can absolutely use stock sounds if you know how to manipulate them to get them to sound how you want them to. So we're in 3/4 and it's really creating that kind of side-to-side motion. The kick pattern is like this. And here's where we're bringing in the character. You're going to see this a ton. Distortion and saturation throughout the whole track. So our first instance is Saturn and we've just driven it up. And then I just wanted a little bit more punch, so I've put a ton of attack. Smack in. All right, next we've got our main snare drum. Drum kit designer again. We're using this SoCal snare, just rolling off some of the lows. And then we're adding some spatial effects. So I've got my drum long and drum short. They're both verb suite. This is my drum long. It's a medium halt. It's got quite a long decay. And then I'm just doing the Abbey Road trick, making sure that it's nice and clean tonally. And then this is my drum short and it's a short medium room and then the same EQ. So let's have a listen to those two with and without. So without the spatial effects, beautiful snare, but we want some space and a long tail. Lovely. Next, we've got a snare layer. So we're using the same drum kit designer, but we're changing the snare to this SoCal 3. And I've tuned it down quite substantially, just EQing some of the lows because we don't need them. And then I am saturating the crap out of it. And then we're just adding our spatial effects. And for this one, I just wanted the drum short to give it a sense of depth because the main snare is adding the tail and we don't want two tails conflicting with each other. Next, we've got our ride. So I've programmed it as I would play it. I'd be hitting the surface of it and then at certain points, I'd wanna hit the edge of it with the side of the stick because it's quite aggressive and it's going to give more of a kind of crashy sound. Then I've just added soothe because there was a annoying resonant frequency here. And then just a transient shaper to get rid of some of the attack and accentuate some of the sustain. Then we're feeding it to our drum long reverb and then just panning it a little bit to the right. And finally, for our drums, we have some crashes. All of this is the same drum kit. So we're getting a nice natural bit of left to right motion by hitting the different crashes. And then we're just sending it to the drum long. So all the drums together sound like this. So it doesn't sound bad, but it doesn't sound like the reference. Now is where we really create that aggressive character. So we're going to use Decapitator and we are going to destroy it. Now we are right in the ballpark. So I'm just rolling off up to 40 hertz, don't need it. Soothing it out because all of that distortion is gonna bring out some harshness. And then I'm just clipping it just to tame some of those peaks and then adding some more space to it. So we have a different reverb here. I'm using the drum depth preset. And I'm rolling off some of the lows going in there because I don't want all of the sub of the kick to be drowned in reverb. And then I'm just using a slapback delay. So let's listen to that all together. Next, let's move on to bass. So we have a couple of layers. This is the pattern. So what's really cool here is we have a slide at the end of each phrase. So we're using this Reese. I've played around with it being shorter, so there's not a really long sustain and it's not holding onto the note the whole time. There is a release that's happening. And what I'm doing is automating the pitch wheel to go up, as you can see here. At the end of each 4 bars, we've got this. And the easiest way is to just move the pitch bend wheel up and down. I've made it go up to 12, so we've got an octave worth of bending range, and then it's about halfway up, so around 6. And now we want to make it sound a little bit more like a guitar. So I'm saturating it, rolling off some of the highs and low mids, getting rid of some of the really low lows, and then I'm using Faturator to add some fuzz and drive to it. Altogether, it sounds like this. Love it. Next up, we just have a bass layer. So I'm using Modo Bass for that. Just wanting to add a little bit more of a real human touch to it, layered in with the synth bass. So I've got the 70s P bass, play style is picked, and then the muting is at 43%. And then I'm just clicking old age strings. And that's literally it. So together they sound like this. And that's literally it for the bass. All right, next up, let's look at the guitars, which are really adding all of the texture and that wall of sound feeling that we absolutely are going for here. So I've got this 8th note guitar and I'm using Contact Electric Mint for this, tight drive doubled, and then I'm just using the 8th note pattern. Very grunge, love it. So we are doubling it out. The pickup selection is at the bridge, and that's creating more of a sense of width. And then we're copying that over and we're bringing it up an octave. Shaping the tone, getting rid of some of the mids, getting rid of all the lows and low mids pretty much because that's being covered by our other 8th note guitar. And then I'm putting wider on there just to push it out more to the sides. Together that sounds like this. And finally, for the guitars in this section, we've got a lead guitar, and that's just me playing on my guitar over there. I'm doing a touch of tuning on there, just want it to be a little bit tighter. And here's the main meat of it. So I've got this Nerd preset, Strato Rock, and I've just been playing around with the gain booster to make it more distorted. That sounds like this. So that loops around twice. Then we have this. And then that loops around again. And then we're just making it wetter, so it's tucked further back. And on the guitars group, I'm automating the gain at this break here to drop down so there's no tail, there's no reverb, there's nothing, so that we really accentuate that silence. I'm EQing some of the low mids, and I'm adding more fuzz with Facturator so that it really accentuates that kind of buzziness and fills out the frequency spectrum. And finally, we just have some pads and effects. So there's just a little bit of mids that needed filling out. Of course, there's going to be a ton of vocals, but when listening to the reference, I could hear that there was some more stuff filling it out, like a pad and some other stuff. So we've got the big stereo choir. I've brought the tone down a little bit and the volume just so that it's less bright. So we're just accompanying it with some chords, just filling it out a touch. Nothing going on the Mellotron audio strip itself, but on the group of pads, we've got some character processing. So I've got some distortion, some space, magnetic is up a little bit in RC20, and then I am just shaping the tone of the lows. So I don't want any lows, and then the same thing again with the gain. At this point, I don't want any tail. I want to accentuate the silence in that break. And just before that break, we just have two rising effects. So I've got a reversed kick and a reverse cymbal. So just before this break, we just rise into it. Without it, there's just less tension. So we want to use those effects to really accentuate that break and make it as effective as possible. And that's literally it for the chorus. So just before this section, there's the massive viral part that has just gone nuts on social media. So we've just got a bass. We're using the same preset, same settings aside from one. The directional mixer's pulling it pretty much into mono because we want it to feel tighter before it gets to this huge wide chorus. And it's also just more staccato, so it's just hitting the note and then letting go of it. And then for the main guitars, I'm using the electric mint again, and it's now muted, and I've changed the tone of the guitar. It's not doubled, and I've filtered out some of the highs, low mids, and lows. Sounds like this. And I've just automated the Facturator on the group to come off because at this point we don't want that. And then we have a few little cheeky guitar bits. So we've got this bend, and I'm just using Guitar Rig for that. Same preset, Strato Rock. Then we have another sort of bend that's panned to the right. Same preset, I've just added some more delay to it. And then we have this little section. Now this is different processing on the guitar. It's just going through this amp, a little bit of compression, and this cabinet. And then I'm using repeater to create that vintage delay. And then just a little bit of soothe just to ease some of the mid information going on. And then this build up just before the chorus, we have some Atmos going on. So I'm using this organ Mellotron and I'm shaping the tone of it, basically band passing it, getting rid of some of the low mids. And I'm automating the filter on these two to open up just before the chorus. So that one on its own sounds like this. And then we're letting the tail trail off in this break just before chorus to create a sense of space and tension. And then I'm using this preset from Aura by Arcade. Sounds awesome. And then I'm just automating the filter to come up as well. Then I'm using one of the playable loops from the Everworld Aura pack. Just creating a drone. And finally, I'm adding some more Atmos and air with the Freefall Aura pack. And altogether, the Atmos sounds like this. And this section altogether sounds like this. And then we go into the chorus. So that is it, my friends. That is pretty much the entire song as a whole. Of course, there's going to be a ton of vocals, so that has all been taken into consideration in terms of the production. There's not really that much on the surface. There's just a few guitars, bass, some Atmos, and drums. But it's all the little nuances that really make it such a beautiful production. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you want to see how I reproduced What Was I Made For, click the video right here. And until next time, create courageously.